Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Try that one more time. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I want to welcome you today to the Preparedness Day Summit. My name is Pastor Trevor Barnes Jr., and I have the privilege of being the pastor here at the Northside Seventh-day Adventist Church. We are just elated for this opportunity to educate our community and to be a part of getting our community ready for any potential disasters that come your way. I was speaking to someone a little earlier this morning because although we always say we need to be ready, because when a disaster happens, it's like your wheels are turning. You don't know what to do when there's a disaster. And we had an experience like that this week. My wife was on her way to work when she was hit by another vehicle going down the 170. The vehicle was passing her on her left, hit the driver's side. He then proceeded to go into a barricade, and he had so much momentum that he came back and hit the car on the other side. So she got hit twice, and the car is totaled. The good news is my wife is fine. And so we give God glory for that. But we had this experience. Where's the insurance? Where's the registration? Is it in the vehicle? All those things that you kind of just take for granted when you're driving on an everyday basis. And it was just a reminder for us that we always got to be ready for whatever potential disaster comes your way. Because how many of you know that the disaster will come in the hour that you think not? It will come. And so we want to know what to do ahead of the time so that we are ready when the time comes. Do you believe that? And so this is what today is about. And I just want to publicly thank the St. Louis County Office of Emergency Management, American Red Cross, the Missouri State Emergency Management Agency, and the St. Louis County Office of Emergency Management. I want to thank all of those entities, along with our councilwoman, for being here today. And I'm going to begin with a word of prayer, then turn it over to councilwoman to come up and give us a few words at this time. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we just want to thank you for the opportunity to come together, to learn, to grow, and to get ready so that we can stay ready and that we will be able to also share what we learn with others so that we can help others to be prepared for whatever disaster comes our way. Father, we know that tragedy hits, and Father, we want to do whatever it is that we can to get ahead of the game so that when that moment comes, we'll be like those wise virgins, that story that you told, who had oil in their lamp. They were ready for the disaster. Make us ready, we pray. In the name of Jesus, amen. Amen.
Well, good morning. Good morning. And thank you all so much for being here. It is an honor for me always to come to this church. This church has proven to be a leader in the community in making sure that the folks around this community have what they need. And that's significant because we need spiritual leadership as well as all the other kinds of leadership. But it's here at this particular place that they've gone and made a step forward outside of their necessary comfort zone in terms of making sure that folks have what they need. It's interesting that you would mention the accident with your wife. These things happen, and the question is, are you ready? We know about floods. We know about fires. What do we do in the interim until the fire department shows up? What do we do with the flooding? Do we have all of our paperwork in place? Do we know where all of that is? Is it safe from fire? Is it safe from flood? What is it? And so these are the kinds of things that we hope that you'll take and you'll understand. It's interesting when we have getting ready for tornadoes, and the sirens are going off, and I told my children, I said I had my purse and I went to the basement. I said, Mama, what'd you take your purse? I said, that's where everything is. So I'm going to be holding on that purse. So if I'm in a tree somewhere, you're going to know who I am, because I'm going to have my purse with me. But anyway, so I think it's important also that we make sure that we are self-sufficient. What Red Cross will be there to help us, of course, but everybody else is going to be depending on the Red Cross as well. And so we need to make sure that we have all of our ducks in a row so that whatever happens, we can maintain until the proper authorities get there. What happens if the electricity is out? This St. Louis, okay? So any given day, we may be without electricity. People who need the electricity to have their medical issues addressed, CPAP machines and those kinds of things. Do we ever think about that? And that's just electricity being out. And how long is it going to be out? This summer, I think there were some folks out for 3 weeks. What do you do? What's your backup? Generators, what do you have? Auxiliary forms of heat. So we have to make sure that as we move forward in our days, that we capture all of the information that's going to be given to us today and make sure that we are ready. So I am pleased to be here. Thank you so much for having me. This has been a kind of a crazy day for me. I had a meeting at 8 o'clock. We're getting ready to send a young lady off to college, and we wanted her to be ready. We wanted her to be prepared. So we had a trunk party. Everything that she may possibly need, detergent, salt, soap, and towels and sheets and all that kind of thing. So she's prepared. And so now I come to this with preparedness. And it's all about making sure that we have and do what we need to do. So thank you so much for being here. And you take this information to others. You have families. You make sure that, you make sure that your parents, grandparents, your aunts and uncles, sisters and brothers, everybody, because that someday it will hit you and you want to be ready. So thank you.
At this time, we want to invite Dan Stumpf from the St. Louis County Office of Emergency Management.
Do we Red Cross first?
Okay, let's go ahead and do the Red Cross first. Yeah.
Good morning. My name is Doug Moore. I'm a volunteer with the Red Cross, and I am actually part of, I'll spend a little time here until I get my remote. I'm part of the Disaster Cycle Services team at the Red Cross. And Disaster Cycle Services, basically we do three things. We do community preparedness education. That's why we're here today. In the case of a disaster happening, we respond. We make sure that the people that are affected have the food and the shelter and the health care that they need short term. And then the third thing we do is help them recover, okay, with long-term assistance. And so that's kind of the Disaster Cycle Services. And with me today is Shamar Steele, raise your hand, Tina Davis, also Carla Templeton. Where's Chris? A fellow volunteers in the back, and then Ann's around here someplace. She's in the back as well. So here to support you. Any of us can answer questions of any kind. So, oh, there we go. Oh, that's me. That's not good. Okay, all right. So with that, I'll begin a discussion here on preparedness. We're going to start with a brief video that I think will give you some good information, perhaps.
Devastating devastating earthquakes, record flooding, destructive home fires, and many more unexpected hazards. Hazards are inevitable, but with the right kind of preparation, you can lessen their impact and make a difference. How prepared are you to protect what matters most? Most people say they're not prepared, but that they want to be, and others have started to prepare, but don't know what steps to take next. That's why we created the Be Red Cross Ready program. We'll provide the instruction, information, and experiences you need to be prepared to protect what you care about most. Gain knowledge and skills from Be Red Cross Ready preparedness experts in real time. We'll show you what hazards affect your community and tell you what you can do before, during, and after a disaster occurs so that you are ready to take action. And we'll practice ways to stay safe. Just by being here, you've taken the first step, because when you are prepared, you can protect what's most important to you. Prepare so you can protect yourself, your family, your community. Be Red Cross Ready. Prepare so you can protect.
Okay, so we're going to talk some details, and even though it's a large room, it's a small crowd, I invite you to ask questions, raise your hand during the presentation. I'm happy to address anything. I also invite my colleagues that if I leave anything out or if there's some extra things they can add, I invite them to raise their hand and jump in. And so, again, that's me. Okay. So, disaster can strike at any moment. What do we mean by disaster? It's something that can affect people. It can affect services. It means we might not get the services that we need. Also, property damage or destroyed. These are the kinds of disasters that we're talking about. And it can strike at any time, as several of us have already mentioned. So, in this area, the greater St. Louis area, we're basically talking about these types of disasters: earthquake, flood, tornado, wildfire, maybe extreme heat, thunderstorms, winter storms. And I want to focus specifically for just a moment on home fires, okay? So, if we look at home fires, there's three things that really cause home fires more than anything else. Over 75% of the home fires are caused by these three things. One of them is in the kitchen, our cooking, electrical appliances, and sadly the other one is smoking, okay? So we're going to talk about these three things in detail, so you get an idea of maybe what you can do to help create a more safe environment in your home, okay? In the kitchen, how many people have a fire extinguisher in their kitchen? Or at least near the kitchen? Excellent, okay? Great place. Why? Because that's where the heat is, okay? We're often cooking things. We want to make sure that when we cook something, we stay in the kitchen. We like to say, keep an eye on what we fry, okay? I think that's a real good thing to remember. And having a fire extinguisher in there is a great idea. So, electrical appliances is another thing. We want to make sure that the electrical appliances we use are in good working order, and we want to make sure that we don't misuse them, all right? We can plug them into wall outlets, directly into wall outlets when possible. Avoid use of extension cords when you can, okay? You want to make sure all the cords are in good working order, not frayed, okay? And avoid overloading outlets. And the other key thing is if what you're plugging in actually creates heat, you want to make sure that anything that is combustible is at least within 3 feet, more than 3 feet away from that source, okay? That's a critical thing. And then lastly, smoking. Smoking only accounts for about 5% of the fires, but it accounts for over 20% of the deaths. And so it's a huge thing. If you smoke, never smoke in bed. I encourage your friends who smoke to never smoke in bed. We always want to make sure they've got ashtrays that are deep, that you put out your cigarettes, that they're put out. And then keep our matches and things, combustibles, away from children. Make sure they understand the dangers there. The other thing I'll add is a lot of people are using the vaping devices. And if you use a vaping device, you want to make sure that you don't leave that unattended when it's charging. And you want to make sure that you're charging it with the cord that came with it, okay? These batteries can overheat and create a fire source in and of themselves, okay? All right, so one of the biggest things that you can do to help keep your home safe from fire is install smoke detectors. Smoke detectors save lives. We've logged over 2,000 lives saved since 2014 strictly because of smoke detectors. Okay, you want to have them one on every floor. You want to have them in your sleeping area. Okay, you want to make sure that you test them every month. And you'll notice in the picture here, you don't have to get a step ladder to test it. Okay, I'm old enough to where I really don't want to get up on a ladder anymore. And so you can test them with a stick. You want to make sure to change the batteries at least once a year. And if it's older than 10 years old, change out the smoke alarm. Okay, critical. And if you've got an alarm that goes off every now and then, don't just disarm it and let it go. Replace it. Replace it. We have a sign-up sheet in the back of the Red Cross table. If you like, we can come out and arrange to have a smoke alarm installed for free. Okay. And so if anyone's interested in that service, I invite you to sign up on the Red Cross table in the back. Okay. Any questions about that? Okay, so if there's a fire in your house, what do you do? What? Run. Okay? That's an acceptable answer. Get out. Okay? The other thing you want to do after you get out is you want to stay out. And a lot of times, staying out is even harder than getting out. Okay? If we've left some loved one or a pet or someone back in the house, it's a natural tendency to want to go back in and help that person or that pet, okay? You need to fight that and stay out, okay? And I think our firefighters in the back will attest to that. But find a safe escape route. If there's smoke, get low, okay? Make sure you meet your family and people else in your house in a designated place. Call 911, okay? And again, stay out. All right. So, the escape. From a fire perspective, you want to make sure that you have an escape route. You want to make sure you have 2 exits from every room. The windows and doors need to be open and easily open. Make sure that the escape route is clear. Okay? So, know what that escape route is. And then designate that meeting spot outside. Okay? And then, as I said, call 911 once you're safe. All right, so practice your plan. Practice your plan with everyone. You know, people say, well, I don't want to scare my kids. Let me tell you something. Kids love this. My 3-year-old granddaughter had her own fire drill the other day when she's at my house. Okay? They love it. They feel empowered because they know what to do. So involve the children. Involve the pets. Practice with them as well. Okay? So the other thing is, if you're in a closed room, you want to make sure you look for smoke. Feel the door. If it's hot, don't go out, okay? Seal the door off. If it's dangerous to escape, make sure you block the air vents and either call 911 or signal outside of the window that you're up there so that the firefighters know where you are, okay? All right. So, just in summary for home fires, make an escape plan, test your smoke alarm every month, okay? And since this is our time change weekend, this is a classic time for people to change their batteries in their smoke alarms, okay? It's a good time of year to do that. And practice your fire escape plan at home, okay? Any questions about home fires? All right, what I'd like to do then, since we've got home fires covered, is talk just briefly about some of the other dangers. Earthquakes, floods, wildfires, not so much in St. Louis, but it is a possibility. Tornadoes, certainly. Thunderstorms and winter storms, hey, yeah, for sure, right? So when we talk about these, there are dangers. And when the weather people talk about these, they use certain terms, right, with respect to our weather. And undoubtedly you've heard these terms: watch, advisory, or warning. And it's important that we understand exactly what they mean. okay? If it's a watch, that means the conditions are possible for a tornado or a thunderstorm or a winter storm to occur. If it's an advisory, that means that it's really going to happen, okay? You can just count it. It's just a matter of it. And then finally, the warning, that means it's on its way and it's really time for you to act, okay? I love a good analogy, and I like cookies. So when I look at this, I use the analogy of making cookies. If it's a watch, I've got all my ingredients gathered together, okay, to make my cookies. An advisory, well, that means it's inevitable. So I'm mixing it up and I'm getting ready to bake my cookies. If it's a warning, I'm baking the cookies and I'm eating, okay, because it's time to act. And in the spirit of Be Red Cross Ready, we need to make sure we do the preparedness part ahead of time, okay? As a good friend of mine once said, Noah didn't wait till it started raining before he built the ark. He built it before it started raining, okay? All right, so in the event of a disaster, you may not be able to travel outside your home. You may not be able to have, you may not have electricity, you may not have water. There's a lot of things that you may not have in the form of services. We can't always count on our good friends, the firefighters or the police. They may be busy someplace else with something more disastrous, or maybe they just simply can't get to us. Okay? So, it's important that we be prepared. The good news is we have time to be prepared now. Okay? And by being prepared, it'll help us stay safe, adapt to the challenges that might occur, and recover quickly from the disaster. So, the St. Louis Department of Emergency Management is going to talk about their three-step process, but it's much like this. So I'm going to review this quickly, and then we'll go over it again, I'm sure. And so the Be Cross Ready program has three components. One, get a kit. Assemble what you need. Make a plan. Know what you're going to do. Okay? And the third thing is be informed. Understand what's happening in the community so you can react. All right? So, get a kit. What does this mean? It means gather up what you need to survive for about 3 days. 2 weeks is even better, okay, for 3 days. Position it someplace in your house where you know where it is, and you can access it quickly. You might even want to have a backpack that's got a small amount of things in it, so you can take it if you have to evacuate, okay? And what's in your bag or what's in your kit really is unique to you, okay? You want to customize it for you and the people in your household. Okay? So, gather the essentials. All right? What are the essentials? Maybe some food? Maybe some water? How much water do you think you need? We say 1 gallon per person per day. Okay? And right away, I'm thinking, man, I do not drink a gallon of water. That's crazy. But there's other things you might need water for besides drinking. Okay? So, 1 gallon of water per day. Food. Okay? I'm here to tell you peanut butter will last 2 years. So you can put some peanut butter on your shelf. I like sardines. I can't help it. I like it. Okay? That lasts a long time. Think about things that are canned, things that ready access, that you know, put a can over with your kid as well. Okay? Crackers. Things that you can live on or do with that have a long shelf life. Okay? First aid kit, medicines, batteries, and flashlights, right? Store those flashlights. You might want to take the batteries out and not put the batteries in until you're ready to use the flashlight. Extra batteries, always a good idea. Your health needs, anything that your pets might need. Think about some of the documents that you might need, okay? In the case of either a house fire or emergency. You know, documents that you want to keep safe, insurance policies, birth certificates, passports, medical files, okay? Put those in a box that's fireproof. You don't have a fireproof box? How about put them in your refrigerator, okay? Firefighters tell me the refrigerators are fairly well insulated and actually do pretty well in a fire, okay? So that's a good second choice. You build your kit, you might want to have a little mini kit for work and certainly want to have a kit for your car in case you get stranded during a storm, right? Okay? Some first aid kit in there, some food. I got a blanket, some food, first aid kit, a few tools, a pair of jumper cables in my car all the time. Okay? Any questions? Second thing, make a plan. The plan you have will be different for a tornado than it maybe is for a winter storm, okay? But you need to think through what that plan is. Do I stay or do I go? Okay. Tornado. Maybe I hunker down. Maybe I have a basement. Okay. If I live in a trailer, okay, then I want to find a shelter. Okay. And I want to find that shelter when there's a tornado watch, and I want to go to that shelter when there's a tornado warning. Okay. Maybe even earlier. Okay. Any questions about that? Make sure that the people around you know what you're going to do, okay? Share that information with them, all right? Understand how you're going to evacuate, how you're going to evacuate the other people that are in your home, and practice that plan, okay? Review the plan twice a year. Make sure it still makes sense. Be informed. Understand what's happening before the disaster gets to you, and then after the disaster hits, stay informed to make sure you understand when the roads are clear, when it's safe to go outside, or like that, okay? One way to do this is with a battery-operated radio. There's some crank-operated radios. NOAA, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, they have a radio. It's a weather radio. That's a really good choice to have, okay? All these things are good options, okay? And then there's some extra tools. There's, besides redcross.org, which is a great place to go find out how to be better prepared, ready.gov is a great site, okay? And we also have a couple Red Cross apps that I want to briefly mention to you. One, and this is my favorite, is the Red Cross Emergency app. If you use, how many people use apps on their phone? Okay, this is a terrific app to have. It will alert you in the event that a disaster is pending or coming in your area, or there's a warning in your area. You designate what your area is, and it really keys on that area alone. It also has a lot of information about how to be prepared. And then the key thing is, it actively will tell you where the Red Cross shelters are, okay, during a disaster. So it's a really nice app for that. The other app is a first aid app, okay? And the first aid app is searchable by first aid needs, and also it has a hospital locator and a 911 call. So it's a great app to have on your phone as well. So I recommend both of those, okay? With that, be Red Cross ready, get a kit, make a plan, stay informed. Any questions at all for me? If you think of some other questions, we'll be back at the tables later. I do want to thank Pastor Barnes and the Seventh-day Adventist Church for having us here. We relish the opportunity to come talk to people, and so thank you very much, Pastor, for having us.
Thank you, Doug. Our next presenter will be Jody Dickhart from the State Emergency Management Agency. Following him will be Dan Stumpf from St. Louis County Office of Emergency Management.
Good morning. Nice weather outside. Glad we were prepared for it, right? All right. Well, as has already been said, thank you to the Northside Adventist Church, Pastor Barnes, for hosting a very important event. And Pastor Barnes, I would encourage you and your team here, keep doing this. Keep doing this. Keep doing this. Keep doing it. There is no way to say that, well, we've done enough, because that's not achievable. What you're hearing today, there's a consistent message, and that is be prepared. One of the things I want to say is, especially in a community such as this, I mean, we all have frameworks that we work in, whether it's at work or whether it's in our personal lives, our personal belief systems, and there's a difference between getting ready and being ready. Okay? And so there's lots of encouragement in our world to be ready and to stay ready. One of the things, as I've started out In my career, I've been on the faith-based side of disaster response. I was a pastor for about 25 years. I was also a state director for a faith-based disaster response entity. And then I also got engaged for about 15 years at the state level of voluntary organizations active in disaster. I was a president, an executive officer in Iowa and here in Missouri, as well as in Kentucky. And so over those 15 years, I've had the privilege to have firsthand experiences of a very important key: relationships. There's nothing more important. There's plans, there is having the kit, there is having the plan, exercising it, doing that, but there's nothing more important than relationships. And we're going to talk about that. So at State Emergency Management, we're going to talk about today how we integrate and how we support and how we act and integrate with those that are responding. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that and that relationship element. There's a couple of misconceptions that we have, and that is, well, we're going to be okay because the state's going to come in and help us. The state's going to come in and take care of it. Or we're going to be okay because FEMA is going to be coming in. Okay? Those are half-truths. They are not totally accurate. Everything depends on local, personal preparedness, and not just for the civilian citizens. So you're just community members here. But everybody who's wearing a uniform or has some type of patch on their lapel today also has the same requirement to be prepared. Because if we're not prepared, then we're also not prepared to help. And that is very, very important. One of the stories, anecdotal stories, I appreciate those very much. We have, my colleagues and I at the state have been working recently to integrate access and functional needs, disaster emergency preparedness. And one of the videos, and just for time's sake, I didn't bring that today, but just a short synopsis, back in one of the hurricanes down in Louisiana, a young lady by the name of Burnett, they called her Bernie, and she used a wheelchair. She was part of the functional needs community. And they tried to get her out. She had called for help, and somebody was going to come help and get her out, and nobody came. And when her friend called to check on her, she said, yeah, I got a call from the entity that was going to come pick me up, and the gentleman said, I can't come get you. I've got to go take care of my family. After the hurricane ended, they found her body and her wheelchair floating in her house. She died. Not only for emergency management, for public safety, for those whose job it is to protect human life, not only is that not acceptable, for just being human, all of us in the room, that is not acceptable. And so today I want to just show a little bit about what we do. The mission for SEMA, State Emergency Management, is to help our fellow Missourians prepare for, respond to, recover from all emergencies, and each step will be guided by our core values of respect, integrity, trust, honesty, and compassion. We live in a world where it's hard to trust people, isn't it? Okay? That's why I said relationships is the most important part of this whole dynamic. Not just trusting your neighbor or your friend, but trusting, even at the level that I work now, in trusting my fellow colleagues and helping my fellow colleagues to trust me. Very vital. It's very important. To give you just a little idea of what we do at State Emergency Management and how this whole process works, I've got a little about 5-minute video here that will really give us and does a great job of setting the stage.
Disasters happen in every community, and they come in all shapes and sizes, from a simple incident affecting one community to a major catastrophe affecting an entire region. A hurricane, for example, can cause a massive storm surge and powerful winds, which can lead to flooding, collapsed buildings, fire, loss of power, and other consequences. When these widespread impacts cascade and multiply, we have a catastrophe on our hands. the government will immediately initiate a response to address these challenges. And in the Emergency Operations Center, or EOC, the emergency managers will activate plans to understand the scope of the disaster, to ensure that help reaches those in trouble, and to coordinate police officers, firefighters, and medical teams to make communities safe and secure as soon as possible. There are also a number of non-governmental community and faith-based agencies and organizations that are active during a disaster and will leap into action and work with the government to provide emergency food, shelter, supplies, and more to those in need. The problem is that there is often little communication between different agencies and organizations serving the same community. And even though they can help one another, they may not be aware of each other's efforts. Without information about the operations of other organizations, they could potentially hurt their local recovery effort by duplicating resources, wasting funding and time, putting field staff in danger, and even directly hindering another organization's work. For example, let's say that we encounter a certain community that's been affected by a disaster, and there are two organizations that have decided to lend a hand and supply much-needed resources. Since they're not communicating with each other, imagine they are both providing home cleanup kits. But neither of them is providing food, which the community needs. With a quick exchange of information, one of the organizations could start providing meals. This way, two of the community's needs will be met. During a disaster, these connections are best made through communication networks coordinated with the local Office of Emergency Management. These networks bring together community organizations and agencies during a response. Since the emergency managers in the EOC have a big picture view of what is happening, they can interact and share information. An example of one of these communication networks is the local voluntary organizations active in disaster, or VOAD. VOAD is a network of non-governmental, community, and faith-based agencies and organizations that specialize in disaster services and convene on a regular basis for information exchange, even when there are no disasters. Although each agency or organization is in charge of its own operation, the members communicate with one another so they can share emergency information and coordinate emergency efforts to provide vital services to those in need. Oftentimes, VOAD has a representative that sits in the EOC with the emergency managers and can help provide critical information on unmet needs and available resources. Some are affiliated with national organizations and should link with them, as these larger agencies will be present during a disaster as well. It is critical to understand that these connections cannot be formed during the chaos that surrounds a catastrophe. We must connect before a disaster strikes and stay connected. Learn how you should connect with your local emergency management office now. From them, you can obtain accurate emergency information and details on how to volunteer. Visit their website and become familiar with the different programs and educational materials that are offered. Sign up for emergency alerts if available. As soon as disaster strikes, check with your local emergency management office to see if it's safe to go into the affected zones, and then determine how you can join the team and help your neighbors. You should also become familiar with the VOAD in your jurisdiction and introduce yourself and your organization or agency so that when disaster strikes, you can be an effective part of that response. To make our communities as safe and secure as possible, we need to bring together all of our resources, connecting our government partners and responders to our professional and voluntary non-governmental agencies active during a disaster, as well as to our neighborhood-based community groups. When we do that, we create an emergency team that has the best experience, the best equipment, and the best local knowledge to deal with any disaster of any shape or size.
So what did you hear? Make the connections. Make the connections in your community. Make the connections between the organizations. Make the connections between the professional responders that are there, because we all need to work together. And we will either do that because we had to, or better, because we planned to. And that's going to be a huge piece of that. So State Emergency Management Operations, you notice of course there's our logo there, but the logo that's on the side is the disaster cycle. Wash, rinse, repeat. Wash, rinse, repeat. Wash, rinse, repeat. Wash, rinse, repeat. That's the way it can get. The reason is, in this world of emergency management, disaster response, bad things happening in our world, it is not static. You can't do it once and done, okay? I've got a kit, I've got a plan. Guess what? I need to update it, okay? And that you just have to pay attention to that. You have to do that. The other element within our response entities is that things change. People retire. People take different jobs. They move on, okay? And you can lose historical knowledge. You can lose those relationships that are so vital and critical. I remember when I first got involved, it was the first big disaster was the Joplin tornado in 2011 down in Joplin, Missouri. I was in Iowa. I was the state VOAD chair for Iowa. I was the state director for a faith-based entity and got deployed to Joplin to help out. And through all of that, got called back to Iowa because we had, in 2011, we had historic Missouri River flooding, as we often do. And I remember the Adjutant General for Iowa Homeland Security standing in the State Emergency Operations Center, and he held up the plan. The State Emergency Operation Plan was big, and he threw it in the trash. And then he got everybody's attention and said something that I've never forgotten. He said, we work hard to make these plans. We pay lots of money to the employees to think critically and plan and exercise and practice and fill the gaps and continue to do that. He said, why did I just disrespect that and throw it in the trash? He said, because we all know that when we're out there, a lot of that happens. A lot of the plan doesn't work the way we thought it would because we couldn't plan for everything. But he said, I'll tell you this, look around you. So look around you right now. Look around you. Get to know these people. Build a relationship with them so that they will trust you and you will trust them. Because when the plan goes in the trash, you're stuck with one thing. It's called improvisation. You gotta make it up as you go. And the best way to do that is to be able to be trustworthy and to trust others. Which is why you've seen in the video, when the disaster happens, that's not the time to exchange business cards. That's not the time to say, hey, I'm here to help. I don't know who you are. I don't know what you do. You don't know what I do. We do things different here than maybe you do there. I don't know all that. It's not the place to do that. It's not the time to do that. So that is a very, very critical piece. So in disasters, there we go. So how does it work here in Missouri? So in the state of Missouri, from State Emergency Management, the emergency management entity at the state has broken, well, we didn't, but public safety does, the Highway Patrol. We have 9 highway patrol zones, and then the metropolitan area and rural area of St. Louis is broken into 2 more in Region C. So we have 10 regional coordinators that are in our department for state emergency management. They are our liaisons between the local emergency management at the city and the county level and state emergency management. So all events, all disasters begin and end locally. Okay? And that's an important thing. It's not just a phrase, it's not just a saying, it's very important. In how emergency management works is everything begins and ends locally. So when an event happens, It all starts with the local emergency management at the city and the county level. Those offices, those individuals, they are the ones that take responsibility and leadership, and they start to engage their community and help the response, whatever entities are needed, law enforcement, fire, EMS, any of those entities that are needed happens at the local level, and the regional SEMA coordinators are there to integrate with them, and they're here all the time. They build relationships, they get to know and get to be known, and they are there for the simple purpose of helping to resource the local jurisdiction when those resources get tapped out. I learned something very recently for those of my colleagues when I took the ICS 300 class. I learned the difference between emergency and disaster. Thought, is there a difference? Yes, there is a difference. Emergency is what happens, a disaster is what happens when the local resources can't match the response effort needed. Then it becomes a disaster. But that's why we have folks in uniform today, which I am so grateful for. My family is a public safety family. I've got a law enforcement son, and I've got a firefighter, paramedic, and flight nurse son. And so understanding what you gentlemen and ladies go through in our public safety sector is not to be underappreciated in any way, shape, or form. They are here to help us, and I am so grateful for what they bring to the table. So when local emergency management gets tapped out, the resources that are needed to respond effectively in the community are tapped out, they reach out to state emergency management. State Emergency Management, as you see it in the video, is running an emergency operations center. They're monitoring, they're staying up to date with the conditions, helping communication go back and forth. It's real time, and if something comes up that they need, State Emergency Management starts to fill the gaps, starts to coordinate, starts to help. That's where I come in for a certain part of that, as does Waylon and the rest of our State Emergency Management support staff. When the state level cannot handle and have enough resources to meet the need, they reach out to FEMA, Federal Emergency Management, okay, to help bring in the other kinds of resources. When that's all done, when the state no longer needs that FEMA support, it comes back, FEMA steps away, FEMA continues on. That process continues when it gets down to where the local jurisdiction, county, region, city can take care of it, then state backs off, and it ends again locally. Begins and ends locally. Okay? So that's not just at the professional response level, that's at our level as citizens. That's why it's important to be prepared. Now, traditionally, historically said that preparation is you should be prepared to be able to take care of yourself for 72 hours. That is old news. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. The aspect of having a gallon of water a day is one thing. But what happens when you run out of that gallon of water a day and you still don't have water? Do you have a filtration device? Oh yeah, I've got one on the sink. Do you have a filtration device that you can draw water out of the stream or out of a barrel beside the house or whatever resource that you have that you can get water so you can purify it so it's not going to harm you? And if you have only one of those devices, you have none of them. You need redundancy. You need to have more than one. So you should have at least 2 or maybe 3 water filters, okay? Sources of communication, backup radios, flashlights. You know, if you're going to have enough food, what happens when your canned food runs out? Well, I got a barbecue grill. I got propane. I can cook on the barbecue grill. Well, how long is that propane tank going to last you when you're cooking a meal for 30, 40 minutes at a time? Or have you prepared freeze-dried or dried meals, soup, okay, oatmeal, and all it takes you is 2 to 3 minutes to boil enough water to rehydrate that. And all of a sudden that propane that you would use up in a few days by cooking a full-blown meal on your barbecue grill can now last you maybe 30 days. What happens if in your neighborhood you're prepared, but your neighbor that's a good friend of yours isn't? Can you help them? Can you make a plan that not only are you prepared, but can you make a plan in your community that pulls everybody together in your back porch, and you say, hey, we're going to do some preparation, and so for the family to the right of me, the family to the left of me, the families behind me, and the families across the street, we're going to make a collaborative, and we are going to prepare so that we can help each other, and where the gaps are, somebody else can help fill, and we can work together to stay. Okay? All of those things are important for preparation. In the Preparedness Division is where Wayland and I work. I am the state mass care unit manager, which means for the mass care for human elements in emergency management, that flows through my office at State Emergency Management in Jeff City. So we take care of and we help sheltering and housing and feeding for pet supplies and pet care, spiritual and emotional care, volunteer coordination, donations, management coordination. Those all fall under, and there's lots of entities that help support that. Okay, Red Cross is one of those. Okay. We help coordinate with all of the other voluntary agencies, as you've seen in the video, voluntary agencies active in disaster, VOAD. We have a Missouri chapter of VOAD, MoVOAD. We have State Governor's Partnership. We have all kinds of entities. This church here has an entity within itself called Adventist Community Services Disaster Response. You have UMCOR, United Methodist Church Disaster Response. You have Presbyterian Disaster Response. You have Catholic Charities, Red Cross, Salvation Army, all of the faith-based and community service organizations, United Way. They are all voluntary agencies, and they work together, and we form a team, and I now have the privilege to be one of the coordinating leaders in that team, which when I took that job here about 7 months ago, it was like coming home, working with my friend Tina. We have a long history together, lots of time out there in the streets. Okay. There are also other places, Medical Reserve Corps, volunteer services for people with medical skills. Nurses and different things, paramedics can be part of a voluntary organization. Maybe they've retired, they can still help serve. Citizens Emergency Response Teams, CERT, ways for you to be trained in specific skills that can help augment the work that St. Louis Emergency Management, St. Louis County Emergency Management, St. Charles and St. Peter's and Jefferson County and all of those, they all have places that can be served. And so across the state, across any place in our state, we have all these services up there underneath the logo for Missouri State Emergency Management. That was a mark, I think that was down in Perryville a number of years ago. Okay. A MARC is a multi-agency resource center, a one-stop shop to where anybody who is impacted in the event can come and not only get emergency supplies and services, but also provide the information that is needed to help provide the data that FEMA will need to see if the area qualifies for individual assistance or public assistance or the resource flow from the federal level. All of that's very important. Missouri Baptist, they're doing mucking and gutting. Adventist Community Services, that's the Joplin warehouse back in 2011. Red Cross with a shelter. Salvation Army going door to door, points of distribution. AmeriCorps St. Louis, working with supplies with the Red Cross. All of those folks are all part of your community, right here in St. Louis and in Missouri. And we all work together. So how ready are you? How prepared are you? Years ago, when I came back to Missouri, and I became aware of the New Madrid seismic zone. The what? Yeah, our earthquake zone. We don't have earthquakes in Missouri. You know, Jeff City said they would never have a tornado in their town either. They don't say that anymore. I wonder why. I'm being sarcastic. The important thing is, are we prepared? Are we ready? It takes all of us to do that. So the New Madrid seismic zone is one of the best kept secrets, although a lot of people say, well, it's just a bunch of hype. People just try to scare us. No, reality is that it is a real threat. It is a very current threat. I experienced my first, it wasn't even an earthquake, it was just a tremor, but boy did it get my attention. I was in San Diego about a year ago, and it was 4:15 in the morning. I will never forget that time. And I'm in my hotel up on about the 7th floor, and all of a sudden my bed is just vibrating, and it's not a vibrating bed, but it's just vibrating. And I woke up and I went, oh my. Turned on the news, and yep, there was a big 5-point-something earthquake a little farther down in Mexico. It's like, man, I felt that all the way up here. And that was just a tremor. So as you can see on this slide, in 1994, a 6.7 hit in Southern California, and in 1895, the same size of earthquake, same magnitude of earthquake, hit New Madrid. But what do you notice that's different about the two pictures? Yeah, the impact is because earthquakes are different. While California has a lot of earthquakes, they're more frequent, and that's where we think that's earthquake preparedness. Yeah, their earthquakes don't have the magnitude that ours will. Okay? In California, the earthquake zones shift back and forth, side to side. Okay? In a little bit farther north, up in Oregon and Washington and Canada, we have the Cascadia subduction zone. That earthquake zone is going like this, okay? One plate is shifting under another one, and when it builds up too much pressure, it springs back. Here in New Madrid, in our zone, it's neither one of those. It does this. Okay, which is why we will have liquefaction. And what liquefaction is when the water, when all that vibration happens, the water table rises up and it weakens the soil where there is no way to hold up anymore and things just fall over. And they're shaking too. But that is a true scenario. So, being prepared. The chances are 7 to 10% chance of a 7 magnitude or higher in the next 50 years. Does that sound like a big risk? Yeah, I mean, it's important, 7 to 10% chance. How about this one? Is that more significant? A 25 to 40% chance, this is from May Center data, this is scientific data, of a 6.0 magnitude or larger in the next 50 years. Well, we say even that, a 40% chance over 50 years, nah, you know, yes, no, I don't know. Is it really that important to pay attention to that? Understand this, it's not up to a 40% chance over 50 years. It is a 25 to 40% chance every day in those 40 years, 50 years. Does that make a difference? Yes, it does. So we live in an area where we have a 4 out of 10 chance to have an earthquake here experience it in St. Louis for something that happens anywheres down in the New Madrid zone, which is southern and southeastern Missouri, Arkansas, Kentucky, Tennessee. A 4 out of 10 chance every single day. Is that something to prepare for? Now, would you rather prepare and never have to use it? Or would you not have prepared and wish you had? Which one would you rather do? Choice is yours. We live in a home rule state. Nobody gets to tell you what to do with anything. You can do what you choose. So in this, yeah, there's a lot of, it can make you sit up and take notice. It might have twinged a little bit, even with the information that I just shared. But we don't have to panic. Preparedness can get us ready. The interesting thing, though, is there's a lot of data. So there's a lot of information. There's great information at the tables out there. There's great information that's available and on various websites. But there's also good information that 52% of families do not have an emergency plan. This is from doonething.com. These stats, wherever they do these statistics, are very consistent across the country. 52% of American families do not have an emergency plan. Uh-oh. Where did that go? All right, we'll get that fixed here in a moment. Thank you, Pastor. All right, 51% wouldn't know what to do if you were told to shelter in place. Yeah, there is the evacuation. Well, I'm not going to evacuate. Okay, you're going to shelter in place. What are you going to do to sustain yourself? I don't know. 36% say they do not, or they've not done anything to prepare. Continues on, 54% don't believe they'd be personally affected by a disaster. 45% say won't be effective. 52% haven't even thought about it. You know, it's kind of interesting. Pastor Barnes shared about the experience that he and his wife had just this week. How many have had that same kind of experience? Right? It's a little different when you hear about it for somebody else and when you experience it. That is a consistent principle. As I mentioned, I was a pastor for about 25 years. I sat at the bedside of families when the heart monitor went flat. Okay? I sat with families in the living room when one of the spouses got the diagnosis of cancer. And as a pastor, my job was to help, support, minister. And in those days, I thought I was doing a fair job, at least a fair job. And then my wife got cancer, bad cancer. And I fell off the cliff. And I'm a pastor. Faith in God. Why are you falling apart? Yeah. And then the next year, I got cancer. And then I sat in my surgeon's office, and he's talking to us, getting ready for the surgery, and he's telling his own story. So he's a cancer surgeon, and he said, 4 months ago, my wife had a total hysterectomy because she had cancer. And I fell off the cliff, and I went, you too? You do this all the time. It's different when we personalize it, when we experience it. And then the day after I accepted the offer of the job to come to work for State Emergency Management, I lost my son in a tragic accident in Colombia. And all of that. And I share that to say personal experience changes everything. Some things you can prepare for. This stuff you can. And it makes a difference with relationships. Relationships are the most important thing, because when this stuff happens, the plan may not work, the resources may run out, but the relationships will be there, and they will get stronger, and we will be glad we had each other. And so for those in the emergency management profession, I'm new to the office, but I'm here for you. I am here to support, and my team is here to support what you need when you need it. For you as citizens, I'm here for you. I care. We are going to do this together whenever it happens. Whether it happens and we have to respond to it, we work through the recovery, we go ahead and identify, hey, what didn't go well? And I know that there are some things that didn't go well back in 2020 with the flood response here in St. Louis. That today is still being worked on. That comes to my office, and we're working on that. To take assessment and go, okay, what do we do to fix it so that that doesn't happen again? And that's preparedness. And the cycle continues and just continues. The older someone is, the less likely they are to follow emergency instructions. That is the truth. That is where I'm going to wind up ending this today, is that especially here for senior preparedness, we live in a world where it's hard to trust what you hear, isn't it? Are you finding that? There is so much news out there that we are all finding, well, they're just telling me that because they want me to do something. They want me to think a certain way. They want me to take a certain step, a certain action, because it's what they want, not what's best for me. This is not that scenario. The older someone is, the less likely they are to follow emergency instructions. It takes 3 messages or a message and 2 confirming sources to move most people to action. That is where we work together. Because on one hand, coming to the state, I know that while I have the privilege to serve, the fact that I wear this patch doesn't necessarily mean people are going to trust me more. In fact, it may mean just the opposite in some cases. And I'll tell you this, that bothers me. I am not okay with that. I'm not okay with that at all, because I have a heart to serve and help. But people may not know that. If they don't know me, they don't know that. Tina knows that. Okay? Matt knows that. Director Ryan, who is not able to be with us today, she knows that because we've worked together. Believing a warning message increases the likelihood of responding to it. So I want to tell you something today. I want you to hear this. The aspect of the New Madrid is not a scare tactic. The important thing to consider preparing for a New Madrid event, even up here in St. Louis, is that it will impact. It will have impacts here that will be devastating. It's not a scare tactic. It's not somebody trying to just fearmonger. It is the truth. It's not if it's going to happen, it's when. It is when, and we are past due. The Cascadia, out in the Pacific Northwest, happens. They have a history of 20-plus incidents that have happened at an average of 300 years. The last one happened in 1700. They are quite a few years past due for a margin rupture, which will be a plus 9.0, higher than a 9.0. Science is there. Whether we believe it or not, that's another thing. Preparedness is about relationships and having, as you sensed in that mission statement, trust and compassion. We have got to be able to have the relationships that trust each other, and it takes everybody. It takes everybody. So Pastor Barnes, that's why I said what you're doing here at this church, one church in St. Louis, don't ever stop. Even though this was probably less than the turnout that you had hoped for, do not stop. It's important. Firefighters, you came and took time to be here today. Don't stop. Keep coming. Keep helping. Keep supporting. Because the better that these citizens are prepared, the more successful your work is, and the less heartache you'll have to face. Same thing with me. Same thing with law enforcement. Same thing with EMS. I love this quote from our very own Mark Twain. And I love the way he wrote it. It isn't what we don't know that kills us. It's what we know ain't so. English teachers, I apologize. But it makes a good point. What do we believe? So, the resources that are here today, ready in 3. There are basically 3 steps, whether it is St. Louis County, whether it is Red Cross, whether it's State Emergency Management, whether it is any entity. It's broken it down to be as simple as possible, and there's lots of resources out there. Ready in 3. Create a plan, prepare a kit, listen for information, stay connected, be in tune. Okay? Pastor Barnes has this in a PowerPoint or a PDF document where you can go back and get that number, and you can also go online, health.mo.gov, emergencies ready in 3. You can order those resources and get them right from the Department of Health, okay, and Senior Services. And lastly, there is another aspect of this, and that is the access and functional needs community. Now, that isn't people that use wheelchairs, people that use hearing aids, hearing devices, people that need sign language, people that, have any of those type of things. As we get older, we are all moving into access and functional needs. All of us are, okay? Do we plan for that? Do we take it into consideration that that's part of whole community inclusiveness? The word inclusion needs to include people with access and functional needs, not as somebody that we've got to take care of, but somebody that we need at the table to be part of our community, to make sure that all the plans are being appropriately thought through, planned for, and executable. I do not want to be in a community where there is somebody who needed extra help because they had mobility issues, but there was nobody there to take care of them. This is a program for Inclusive Preparedness Center whereby you work with a plan with individuals, not just for, but with them. Do you have people in your community, in your group, in your neighborhood? Reach out to them, bring them to the table, have conversations. There are resources that are available, Niagara University, and we can provide those resources. I don't know, Dwayla, do we bring that with us today or no? We need to order some of those. Okay, so we can help get those resources. What might an individual with access and functional needs need? Durable medical equipment, as the councilwoman said this morning. Medications, adaptive equipment, assistive technology, transportation, other medical needs. It's the humane thing to do, the human thing to do. To be good humans when it really, really matters. Thank you for your time this morning. Thank you for being here, and thank you for willing to be a voice to help others. Because one of the things, preparedness, you have that plan out there. You have all that. But what is really needed today is to take what you hear to choose yourself. Do I believe what Jody said? Do I believe what the Red Cross said? Do I believe what St. Louis County said? Do I believe that? And then take that and talk to your friends and your relatives and your neighbors when they say, oh, that's, no, seriously, this is real. Be one of those 2 or 3 people that are needed to help others believe the message so they can take the action, so they can be better prepared, so that when the disaster happens, we are better prepared locally, because it's going to start local and it's going to end local, and we can make it better by just being prepared. Thank you for your time.
We're going to go ahead and take a 5-10 minute break. Out at the tables, I encourage everybody to come out, visit each of one of the representatives. If we've got some materials to help you build a plan, get information as far as response and recovery information, and then the church has provided snacks and water out there for everybody to help themselves with food and snacks, and then take a restroom break, and then we'll pick back up.
If you're outside, if you can make your way inside, please, so we can get started. Again, if you're outside at the tables, if you can make your way inside so that we can get started. I know there's a lot of information out there, and we want to get through all of it before our time allotment's over. Oh, look, that's me. I'm on TV again. Dan, I'm not taking your time. I actually was, I was trying to get out of here, man, and go do some work at the station, and they're like, no, you need to say something. So, you know me, I never turn down. I'll never turn down the mic now. Oh yeah, sure. Oh, I was just running my mouth to him. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started because I know we're on a little bit of a time restraint. I am Captain James Morgan. I am the commander of the North County Precinct. It encompasses this actual church and most of the unincorporated North County areas. Just adjacent to here is Jennings. That is another one of the St. Louis County contracts. I was actually almost out the door, going to do some work at the station, and they asked me to say a couple of words, which I don't mind getting in front of the mic. We are very happy to have a partnership with the pastor here. It is a new partnership. I'll be very honest with you about that, but we have some great ideas about empowering this community, finding ways to make this community aware, prepared, and we're working together. I think the last speaker did a great job of explaining that the partnerships that we have, they're only going to be successful if we do them right now, not when it's some bad moment. That's the same thing I'm trying to do here as a commander of the North County Precinct. I like you to see my officers when we're not having those bad moments, because I don't want you to see me in that moment and not know who I am. I'm all over the television, not because I want to be, but there are definitely things that are going on in our community that I think that we have to get in front of. One of them is the accidents that we're seeing on our roadways. Unfortunately, we've had, in the month of February, we actually had 6 fatal car accidents, 4 of which were involved pedestrians crossing the street. In an effort to be prepared, try to get in front of it, my officers came up with this idea of creating these little bags, and you can place these in your car, you can put them in a book bag. If you're walking on the street, you're walking somewhere and you don't feel like you're being very visible or the lights are low, you can throw this little belt on, you're a little more visible. It may look like you're a crosswalk from back when, when we had crosswalks when we were kids, but I'd rather you look a little goofy for that short period of time than I'm going to your family's house talking about you've been struck by a vehicle. So there is a lot of things that we can empower our community with. These are small things, right? And those small things make some big changes if we do that. I appreciate everybody's here today. I know a lot of the people here today are part of the network. So the next time we have something like this, bring somebody else with you. Encourage them to come, even when it's raining, to come out and learn about what's going on in our community, because we are the community. We are the community. Everybody is a part of that, and I'm encouraged to see what the rest of 2024 has for us. We have some of these back there if you haven't grabbed one. I don't know how many we brought today, but we have enough at our precinct station. If not, come up and visit us there, and I'd be more than willing to talk to you about anything that's related to North County, our community engagement, and the things that we're doing to try to change the narrative between the community and the police, especially in this North County community, because they deserve it. Okay? Well, thank you. You guys have a good day.
All right, good morning. My name is Dan Stumpf. I'm with the St. Louis County Police Department.
I am in the Office of Emergency Management. You've seen our table out there. We are all about preparing the community. One of the things that we like looking at and how we're structured is we are structured under looking at things such as the disaster response and planning section. We consider things like natural disasters, so Mother Nature stuff, earthquakes, tornadoes, floods. We get them all here in St. Louis. Luckily, knock on wood, we haven't had the earthquake yet, but we do have our fair share of flooding and tornadoes, as well as extreme heat and extreme cold. Technological, nuclear, hazardous materials, power outages, and then the man-made side, terrorism, civil disorder, things along those lines. So that's what we focus on an all hazards approach with emergency planning and preparedness for us and the community. Some of the large-scale events that we do participate in is the JB Blast, which is the 4th of July festival down in South St. Louis County at Jefferson Barracks National Park. We also do presidential debates. The last one that was here was in 2016 at Washington University, but we've had multiples beyond then. And I did speak with WashU the other day. There is not a bid right now for them to host another one for a while, but they will consider it every 4 years during the presidential and vice presidential cycles. And then the big one, which we've been doing right down the street in Jennings, is the PGA golf tournaments. The Norwood Hills Country Club is where we've been helping them out for the last 4 years with the Ascension Charity Classic. Prior to that, it was the 100th PGA Championship at Bellerive over in Town and Country. Coming up in the future, we're gonna have 2 more major golf events coming, 2026 and 2030. The PGA will be back at Bellerive, as well as here in Jennings, we will also have 1 more year of the Ascension Charity Classic, which may end up going into another 4-year commitment, but they're working through those logistics right now. So it's a big benefit to the community up here in North St. Louis County. On the education side, we do presentations such as this one to our community members. What can you do to be prepared? What can you do to better your family, better your home, better your place of business, better your church? And then community outreach, and then training and exercises. Our staff is structured with a director, a deputy director, 3 emergency planners, 1 logistics specialist, 1 communications coordinator, 1 grant program manager, and 1 police aide. That is how our staff is structured for our populace of 1 million in the county. So yes, we're within the county police department, but we also do more than that. We help all of our municipalities out. So if you live in the city of Jennings, we help the city of Jennings out, even though it's a contract with the county police, even when they were their own. We were still there to help Jennings. We're there to help Ferguson. We're there to help everybody. So here's our mission statement. Overall, it comes down to 1 simple 3-word line: making preparedness personal. So part of that is we work with the whole community to build, sustain, and improve our capacity to mitigate, prepare, respond, and recover from all hazards. So think about a hazard. Think about an umbrella approach. Off an umbrella, you have the arms of an umbrella, the ribs coming down. Every one of those could be a different problem or a different challenge. We're here to help the community prepare for anything that can come off of that umbrella for any type of hazard or any type of threat. And then our vision, a safer future for the residents of St. Louis County through effective partnerships that are focused on saving lives and reducing the impact of disasters. So we know emergencies can happen. If you've been in St. Louis for any more than a year, you know anything could happen at any point, and just in the last week, we've had all 3 seasons in 1 day, and we've repeated them multiple times in a week. So we know they could strike at any time. What we try to encourage everybody to do is have a plan of your own, because every family has their own dynamics. Every household has their own dynamics. Every church has their own dynamics. What works for you? Just because it works for you may not work for somebody else, but what works for your community that you're in? So we recommend having a plan and the tools in place to make it your own. And then we have 3 simple steps that can help you prepare for that. So when you're looking at the pictures, the one on the top right is the Merrimack River flooding from a few years ago. And the one on the bottom right is a tornado response that our officers have worked on and we've assisted with. So here's our 3 steps. Make a plan. And it's your plan. Part of having your plan is think about everything. Think about the what ifs. Think about, if my front door is damaged, how do I get out? Is it my back door? Am I able to use my back door? Is there a window that I can open that I could safely get out through a window? What if? So play that what if game. If it's here within your church, same concept. If something happens, if a what if happens here, you're in a service and a tornado strikes, or you're in a service and power goes out. What is your plan? What do you do with the members of your church community that are here in your building? So it's called a what if game. Think about that with your family too. Is there any dynamics within the members of your family or in your household? If your neighbors need special assistance, help them with theirs. so that everybody together can come together in the time of need and help each other out. Have an emergency kit. Out on the table, we did bring a sample one. It has very simple things in it. Flashlight, extra batteries, weather alert radio, non-perishable food, so things like granola bars, things that have shelf life, bottles of water. Think about over-the-counter medications that you may need with you. Another big thing I recommend is tennis shoes. Not slippers, not sandals. The reason why is if you have to walk through a debris field, you don't want to have anything soft on your feet or be barefooted. You want to have some sort of stable shoe on your feet if you have to walk over something. Another thing I recommend, because we've seen this with tornadoes, because we do tend to have tornadoes hit at night sometimes, people are asleep. The one that went through the Central County corridor and hit the airport a handful of years ago, it was around 8 o'clock at night on a holiday weekend. Some folks were already in bed, some folks were home, some folks were at the airport. Well, the ones that were at home, if they were asleep, do you normally sleep in tennis shoes? Do you sleep in flip-flops? No, you sleep barefooted. What happens if your windows are blown out and in the middle of the night you have to step your feet down? What are you going to step on? That debris. So one of the things I always recommend is underneath your bed on the side you sleep on, take an old pair of shoes and just leave them just underneath your box, underneath your frame, where you set your feet down every morning or every evening before you go to bed. We all have that one spot we always sit, right? Put them right there just underneath. So if something happens overnight and you are awoken by something, you have a pair of shoes right there, and put a flashlight next to them. You have a pair of shoes right there that you could slide on your feet, and you know your feet are going to be somewhat protected. Because when we're sleeping, we're always in the bare bones of whatever we wear. Pajamas, and that's usually about it. So have something for overnight if something should happen if you are awoken from a sleep. And then being informed. Different methods of being informed. All the news channels have apps that are out there. We all watch TV. Your radio goes off with the tones if some weather comes in or your show's disrupted because weather's in another part of the county. That's one way of being informed. But what if you lose power? What's another way of doing it? Weather alert radios are great. There's different brands out there. I'm not going to push one brand over the other, but the most common brand you're going to see out there is the Midland brand. But a good one, which runs on batteries and wall power, runs about $35. You could program them to just St. Louis County. You could program them for just tornadoes. You could program them just for flooding. It's not like the old ones where they used to go off for the entire state of Missouri and you'd hear everything going on down in the Boot Hill. Now, you can program them to just St. Louis County. And they're a great tool to have because if you have batteries in them and you lose power, it'll still work. And you have that backup and you can take it to your safe room, okay? So that's another way of being informed. From us, Matt's got out there the flyers about our notification system, which is tied directly to the National Weather Service, that you could that you could put your cell phone number in the system, and it'll text you alerts whenever the National Weather Service issues a warning. So you can get constant updates, and our stuff is reliant on the National Weather Service. If they issue something for St. Louis County, a weather warning like a thunderstorm warning, a tornado warning, a flood warning, your phone will get that. It's not based on geography, it's just based on you being a citizen of St. Louis County. And it's a free service we offer. There's no charge to you, just as long as your phone can handle the texting. So within your emergency plan, sit down with your community, sit down with your members, sit down with your family, your church family, your home family, or your neighborhood family. Whatever you determine your family is or your community is, sit down with them and start thinking about the what ifs. How can we help each other out? Do you know how to turn the power off to your house? Do you know where the breaker box is? Do you know how to shut the gas off? Do you know where the gas meter is? Do you know how to turn the water off coming into your home? Do you know where that valve is? Those are simple things you can do if your home is damaged to prevent further destruction coming down the road. Because if a water pipe breaks after the fact and you're not home, now you're gonna have more damage than what you already had. So those simple things you can do, and this is where partnerships come into play. Work with your neighbors. Work with those in your family. Teach each other how to do something like that on, hey, in your home, here's where the breaker box is. It's this switch. This shuts off the power to your home. Here's the water valve coming into my garage. Here's how you turn it off. Simple things like that can actually help prevent further damage in your household or even a building like this, just knowing where those shutoffs are. From the damage you already sustained to having longer, more sustained damage. So those are just simple tricks. I don't know what slide I'm on. There we go. Special considerations. So also consider about everybody in your family. Everybody's different. We're not all the same. Everybody has different needs. Everybody has different medical backgrounds. Everybody has different things that apply to them. Take that into account. Okay? Consider each person within this church. You're not going to be able to take head counts of everybody in your entire congregation because are they always here all at the same time? No, but can you check those that are in here today? We have a little over a dozen people in here with us today. If something happened today, I recognize faces right now on who we can grab to go to a safe space if we had to. Officer Hughes is in the back doing the same thing. We know who's here. But if this room is full during a service, are you going to know everybody that's here? No. So those are things to think about, is have some things that are a little more generic at the same time. What do we need for any of our members that are here when they have to go to our shelter room that we could have on hand for them because we don't know how long it may take for help to get here? So those are things to consider. So think about the environment when you do this. Also think about that support network and who you're going to call in the event of an emergency. Have somebody who doesn't live, we all have family. They all may be here in the metropolitan area. They could be in another state. Have a contact outside of your neighborhood that you can call to say, I'm safe or I'm not. Because if you're affected, they're not going to be affected. It's kind of like a redundant plan. It's like a plan B. If you're here at church, everybody has everybody else, but you have to be able to help everybody else at the same time. And then think about pets, service animals. Those are all part of it as well. So you have to consider, can you bring that service animal with you? Can you bring that pet with you? If not, who's going to take care of that animal for you? We've done some sheltering with the Red Cross over the years, and we've done co-located shelters. We've done the people shelter inside of a recplex or wherever Tina picks that meets her criteria. And then outside, if we have a need for a family with their cats and dogs, or we've had a guinea pig before, that have their animals, we could set up an animal shelter outside so that the families are not separated from their animals. So we do have the ability to do that. But another thing a lot of families do is, I have a family member in a neighborhood that wasn't affected. I can get them my animal. That's the most preferred because that animal's already comfortable with the family member. It's not like they're going to be around a bunch of different animals that they're not used to, because we all know animals can act. So there's all these things you can do to help your family pets, including your service animals, that you should be able to have with you. Here's some basic things to have an emergency kit. Bottled water. The ratio is roughly 1 gallon per person per day for hydration. That's not counting cleaning, brushing your teeth, using the restroom, things like that. So 1 gallon per person per day for your own consumption to stay properly hydrated. For children, it's obviously going to be a little bit different, but it's roughly still 1 gallon per person per day. Food, think about non-perishable foods that don't require refrigeration or cooking. So pockets, good protein and health-based pocket snacks that have shelf life. Okay? Can opener, let's go old school, a manual can opener. Because if you have an electric one and we don't have power, it's not going to do you much good. Medications, think about what you have. Do you have medications that can be packed up? Are they over the counter or are they prescription based? Do you have an ability to grab them before you have to leave your home? Think about personal care items, your toiletries. Ladies, any products you need. Gentlemen, any products you need that are specific to you. Consider having an extra cache of those in wherever your bag or box is in your safe area. A flashlight with extra batteries. Clothing for the season. Right now, we're still technically in winter. So long sleeves, pants, rain gear all year round. Keep rain gear in your stuff all year round because we know St. Louis it can rain on a drop of a hat. Keep rain gear with you. But when it comes to clothing, trade your clothing out based on the seasons. And if you do that every season, what are you also doing to your emergency supply kit? You're checking it to make sure everything's still good. So use the season changes as that checks and balances when you swap your clothes around. A first aid kit. We've all seen them. Walgreens has pre-made ones. If you need to expand that, get the pre-made one to start with, and then you piece together what's missing that you may need specific to you. Important documents. Copies of your driver's license or your state IDs. If you have passports, those count as well because that's a federal document. That's a document showing who you are. Birth certificates, insurance policies. Have hard copies of something with you if you can't get them on a device, or if you only have one copy, try to get a second copy to keep them in those kits, because at some point, if you can't go back home for a while, you have the necessary important information with you for insurance and things along those lines, okay? And then cash. I'm not saying go out and bury cans in your yard now or put bread bags in your freezer, but having extra cash on hand. Everything these days is going electronic. Everything these days is going digital with cash transfers. What if that doesn't work? Do you have some cash on you just to get basic things at the store? Gasoline for your car, whatever it might be. So I'm not saying go out and drain your bank accounts, but find a number that's comfortable for you just to get started with that you can keep in your emergency kit, okay? So those are just basic ideas. And I see the wheels turning in some of your heads going, okay, now I'm getting other ideas, because all I'm doing is I'm throwing out concepts for you, but you build it based on you. So let's talk about your car. Again, have some cash on you, not a ton. Captain Morgan talked about the visibility straps for pedestrians walking. You can have something like that in your car, because if your car gets stuck on the side of the road and you have to walk down the road, you are still being seen. Cell phone chargers and battery packs. Because remember, if your car's still working, you do have battery pull off of that. But if your car dies, have an extra cell phone battery charger with you that you can keep charged on a regular basis so that when it's needed, you can use it. Jumper cables, local area maps, go back to the old map pages. Multi-tool and a window scraper for frost or anything you might need it for, okay? Now let's talk about your pets. The golden doodle on the right, his name is Jeff. Leslie works in our office, that's her puppy. So he made the presentation. Food, water, medicine and medical records, collar with ID tag, harness, leash, crate, pet carrier, familiar toys, just like you would with children in a disaster. Familiar toys. Children, we all know how children are. They get scared easily, they get distracted easily, and they get worrisome easily. If something changes in their routine, they start worrying about it. Have things with them for children, with your kids, if you have children in your family, that they like to do. Coloring books, games, puzzles, whatever it may be. An extra blanket that they love, an extra stuffed animal, something like that, so that they have some way to do comfort. Well, with your animals, the same way. Do they have special bedding that they like? Do they have a special food that they like? Something to help provide comfort to those animals so they're not over-energized. And then a picture of you with your pet for identification purposes if you're ever separated. We do recommend chipping your animals, but the one thing with the chips, keep in mind if you have chipped your animal in the past, make sure the address on the chip is updated to your address and your contact information, because the chips always start with the veterinary clinic that has them. So there have been times that our animal control has tried to track down an owner and it goes to the vet clinic, in which the number on there goes back to a vet clinic instead of the homeowner, because the data wasn't changed, the information wasn't changed in the computer. So if your animal is chipped by a veterinarian, make sure it's updated to your information and it doesn't remain as the vet's information, so that if you are separated from an animal, you can be met back up and reunified. Different ways of being informed. So we talked about the NOAA weather radio. We have the outdoor warning siren system. They just went off twice this week. Monday for our normal first Monday of the month test, and then Wednesday for the statewide tornado drill, because it's severe weather preparedness week. So there are 204 sirens across the county. For the testing, you only hear it for 1 month, and then you hear a voice talking like this. That's only the test. If it's a real emergency, they'll go for 3 minutes. And that's only when the National Weather Service issues for St. Louis County a tornado warning for St. Louis County. If you hear them multiple times after that, that means another warning's been issued for St. Louis County. So every time that warning's issued, if there's multiples, they will go off every time that warning's issued. Because we've all seen storms over our time in St. Louis that it may start here, but then it shifts and goes here. Or it may come down the north from coming down across 70 and it may shift to go south. Well, by doing so, everybody in North County is aware of what's going on, but now when they reissue a warning, the folks in South County are going to start paying attention more as well, because now the sun's not shining for them. So it's always a 3-minute. Every month they're tested on the first Monday of the month. And then we also recommend you go into the local media. Turn it on the local news. Figuring out what's going on. Are you in that threat path? Are you not? If you are in that threat path, what do you need to do to be safe? If you're not in that threat path, is somebody I know in that threat path that I might need to go help, or help them after the storm comes through. So there's different things you can do when you're watching that, okay? That is all I have for you this morning. Do you have any questions for me? I'll be around for a little bit after this as well if anything pops into your head. But I do want to thank you for having me today. I greatly appreciate it. I enjoy coming out to community groups like this and speaking about how you can be better prepared, because we've all run into problems over the years of being here in St. Louis. We get a little bit of everything, even in the same day. I remember wearing shorts and then switching to sweatpants in the same day, just not too long ago. So, ma'am.
I was wondering with your preparedness kits, I know you need to have one in the car, but you need to have one in the car for each person in your family, and also one in your house for each person in the family.
Your household one? You can do your household one, because like if you go to a basement or like that inner bathroom or whatever it is, you can do a big one for your family, but for your car you don't have all the room to store stuff, right? So maybe small backpacks, those drawstring backpacks, something like that you can put in your car for those family members on who's in your car at any point. But at home, you can do a bigger one for your home, especially but don't weigh it down so much that you can't carry it. So if you do need to break it down and do multiple storage containers or multiple bags, do it. Don't hurt yourself trying to carry it out of your home. Or if you have children with you, obviously depending on their age, they may not be able to help you anyway. But build it how you need. But if it does come down to where you need multiple containers, that's fine. Just make it easier for you. Because if you are that sole adult in the household, you have already a lot of things going through your head. You just gotta be able to grab and go. And if it comes down to multiples, do multiples. But it's whatever's best for your family dynamic. All right? Jody?
So one of the things too with that is a huge point. When you have a kit that's already made, or you have a plan that's already done, there's great videos, FEMA or ready.gov has got great videos out there. There's one that shows the difference between a family that's not prepared and they're running like chicken little. They don't know what they're doing. They're all just, they just scattermine and they can't get out of the house. A family that has the plan, knows where the stuff is, know what to take, know who's going to do what, they're out within 10 minutes and they've got everything. So I mean, there's lots of great reasons why to do that, because as it's been mentioned several times this morning, when the event happens, your mind goes numb. You say, well, what do I do? And if you got it practiced, you got it set, everybody knows it, then you're going to be okay. Much better.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you very much. I'll be hanging out for a little bit longer, and I'll be back at our table in the back. So thank you.
I want to thank all of the presenters for presenting today. I know that we have received great instruction today. And the last words that I will leave you with are get ready, get ready, get ready. Let's end in prayer. Heavenly Father, we want to just thank you so much for this Preparedness Day Summit. We pray, Father, that we would not just be hearers, but we would be doers of what we have heard. We pray, Father, that you would give us traveling mercies as we prepare to go our separate ways. And then, Lord, as we continue this in the future, these conversations and building relationships, we pray, Father, that it would be a blessing not only to us, but to our community. We pray, Father, for these things in the name of Jesus. Amen. Before you leave, or as you're exiting, I just want you to know that the summit has been live streamed, so you can watch the replay at any time that you'd like, and you can share it with whomever you'd like to also. All right. God bless you. Have a great day. All right.